evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Westerville City Schools Board of Education. You can follow along the agenda on the screens in front of you. There will be two opportunities tonight to address the board. The first being agenda item 6.1. The first set of public comments is relative to agenda item 7.1 through 11.5. Please state the agenda items you are referencing at the beginning of your comments. The second opportunity is agenda item 12.1. There is a sign-up sheet located on the back table of the room, and each speaker will have 5 minutes to address the board. A timer will be shown on the screen. And with that, Ms. Marshall, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Bell?
Here.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Here.
Ms. Cotter?
Here.
Mr. Velardo?
Here.
Mrs. Davidson?
Here. Will you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first up on our agenda, our district highlights, and I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Velardo from here.
Thank you, President Davidson. I would like to welcome all of the award winners for this evening. One of the great pleasures that we get to do as a Board of Education is to honor and to recognize the outstanding work that our students and staff do. And so this is for the Reflections state winners. I am going to go to the podium. I'm going to have the board members come and stand up front. Dr. Kellogg, Ms. Marshall will also join them, and then we will commence the recognition. As I said, one of the honors of the Board of Education is to recognize. Is this on? Is that all right? Is it all right? Should I sing? No? No? That was pretty quick there, Dr. Nestor Baker. I am going to invite up Parent Council Representative Jill French, and she will talk a little bit about this award and then invite the students up one by one.
President Davidson, members of the board, Superintendent Kellogg, and Treasurer Marshall, thank you for including us in tonight's meeting and recognizing these talented students. My name is Jill French, and this year, through the sponsorship of Westerville Parent Council, Valerie Cumming and I had the pleasure of co-chairing the 2018-19 Reflections program. Reflections is the National PTA Fine Arts program that encourages students to unleash their creativity and create works of art based on a chosen theme. Each year, thousands of students around the country in pre-K through grade 12 are recognized for bringing this theme to life through categories such as dance choreography, film production, literature, music composition, photography, and visual arts. This year's theme was Heroes Around Me. And just as in years past, our Westerville City School students did not disappoint. 13 schools from around the district participated in the program, including 3 middle schools and 10 elementary schools. The recognition you are giving tonight demonstrates your ongoing support, and Westerville Parent Council would like to thank you for acknowledging these accomplished individuals. This past November, 90 winning entries from the 13 participating schools advanced to the district competition. Local experts and professionals throughout the community then judged the entries and selected winners. We were permitted to send 55 of our district winners to the state level competition. 16 of those entries were selected as state level winners with either first place, Award of Excellence, second place, Award of Achievement, third place, Award of Merit, or honorable mention. Tonight, we're proud to honor these 16 artists who placed at the Ohio PTA state level. I would also like to mention that Westerville City Schools had at least one winner in every category, as well as one winner in each division. We also have 3 first-place winners who received Award of Excellence. These winners will advance to the national level to compete against entries from all over the country, with winners being announced May 1st via PTA Live. Honorees will be celebrated at the National PTA's Convention and Expo, June 20th through the 23rd in Columbus, Ohio. For more information, visit pta.org. We wish these students all the best in the national judging. So, without any further ado, let's recognize these talented artists. First, we have Brooke Hageman, Primary Dance Choreography. 3rd place, Award of Merit from Mark Twain Elementary.
If you're here, we want them to come up.
I don't think she's here. Next, we have Alicia Keenan, Intermediate Dance Choreography. 3rd place, Award of Merit from Emerson Elementary. Grady Hogan, Intermediate Dance Choreography, honorable mention from Whittier Elementary. T.C. Bikos, Primary Film Production. 3rd place, Award of Merit. Mark Twain Elementary. Logan Nevels, Primary Film Production, honorable mention, Mark Twain Elementary. Lucy Reed, Primary Literature, 3rd place, Award of Merit, Mark Twain Elementary. Jonathan Cafaro, Primary Literature, honorable mention, Mark Twain Elementary. Austin Ruermund, Primary Literature, honorable mention, Mark Twain Elementary. Beginning to see a connection with Mark Twain and the state competition. Mira Schamelin, Intermediate Literature, 1st place, Award of Excellence, Emerson Elementary. Allie Washburn, Intermediate Literature. Second place, Award of Outstanding Achievement, Emerson Elementary. Isabella Williams, Middle School Literature. First place, Award of Excellence, Walnut Springs Middle School. Emma Combs, Intermediate Music Composition. Second place, Award of Outstanding Achievement, Emerson Elementary. Peyton Boehm, Intermediate Photography. First place, Award of Excellence, Mark Twain Elementary. Elena McComb, Intermediate Visual Arts. Honorable mention, Robert Frost. Isabella Huth, Middle School Photography. Honorable mention, Walnut Springs Middle School. Allison Heyman, Middle School Visual Arts. Honorable mention, Walnut Springs Middle School. In closing, I would like to say again, congratulations to all of the artists. And to the board, teachers, staff, and parents, thank you for your continued support. I would like to encourage all the students to participate in next year's Reflections program, where the theme will be Look Within. Thank you and good evening.
The award winners and families I know go into the hallway for pictures. I want you to hear this one more time. Dance choreography, film production, literature, music composition, visual arts, photography. They deserve every bit of the recognition that they have gotten tonight and so much more. These are state award winners, some even going further. To parents and staff, thank you for the tremendous support that you have given, but much more to you students. We are really grateful for the way that you have excelled and represented the Westerville City School District, from the board and from the staff. Thank you to everything that you have done. Give them one more hand. If everybody wears the pin on the same.
I'm hoping once everybody leaves. Yeah.
Well, the idea is they all were on the same day. They had different schools. No one remembers. That means they got Huh? Okay. Up next, 4.1, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? These are the minutes from Monday, March 11th, 2019.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Velarde?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. And we do not have any reports, which takes us to public comments, and we have a couple. So just a friendly reminder, there will be 5 minutes shown on the screen, and Mr. Hershiser will keep the time. So up first, we have Mark Stevens.
Good evening. Good evening. Oh, okay. My name is Mark Stevens. I teach orchestra at Heritage Middle School and at Westerville South High School, and this is year number 28 for teaching for me, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. What I've written down, I did send to all my colleagues, and it's just a concern that I'm sure and I hope that will be addressed. As far as what I understand, the current middle school proposal has students choosing between a study hall or performing arts class. What we have is 6th grade requirements in addition to the 4 core academics, a music world history class, literacy skills, and phys ed. That's 6th grade. And then it appears that students must choose between a study hall or any of the performing arts. 7th grade requirements, in addition to the core requirements, are art. These are required requirements. Art, medical devices, engineering and design, and health. And once again, it appears that it seems like the performing arts students must have to choose between. And I also speak as a parent, and when we see schedules like this, students must choose. To most parents and students, study hall is an unwritten requirement. I'm trying to stop shaking here. And, and I know for myself, like for instance, my son right now, he does tennis after school. And so the need for a study hall with all the rigorous academics that they have to do, it's really important. Everybody wants a default to it. Study hall is almost, it's just kind of like an urban legend, almost an unwritten requirement. And this is just from experience of kids dropping class because either they're super academics or they're like English second language or they're having trouble with another class. So that then anything extra, then they need to, they're not able to stay with our classes. And it's a natural habit for people to say, oop, I'm struggling or something like that, we need a study hall. And with the email I sent, I did have an elementary teacher inform me that she had a couple students tell her that they said they can't do it because when they look at the schedule, there's a whole list of classes. How am I going to fit any music class in there if I have to take all these classes? So I can't do either band or orchestra then for 6th grade next year. We, the performing arts, have lost numerous students to study hall because either a high academic student, athletics, or struggling in need of help, or have a full schedule of commitments of home after school. And also it appears after initial requests for our class numbers come in, we gradually do see the numbers drop at the beginning of the year before we get our final rosters. But a lot of these kids seem to be denied, kids struggling academically but are successful in our classes seem to be denied participation because they may need remedial assistance. And these kids really love our classes. And kids of all flavors, I mean, that's what we have, a little bit of everybody, do want to take our classes if we will fit into their schedule. And at least, if it does fit in the schedule, their perception of it not being able to needs to be addressed, whether it's by how we present it or by counselors or anything like that. And basically, like what I've said before, all of us in the performing arts, we want more kids. We've always want more kids, more kids, more kids, more kids. And that's what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Up next, we have Phil Loudon.
Good evening, Board of Education. I'm Phil Loudon. I'm a retired curriculum coordinator, music teacher here in Westerville. I've spent my whole life as an advocate for music students here ever since I came to the community in 1984. I was a part of the Westerville School Board's Community Improvement Committee in 2003. I was with Save the Music in 2011. For any board members who remember, we provided a lot of entertainment during that time. And I was also with the reconstruction of the music committee after that in 2012. It was pretty painful, where we lost 30% of our staff that we really fought hard to build the future of our program. That future was really fueled by an initiative that we had in 2003. I'm holding a book that I can see. Some of you are like, what is that? Well, it was 53 community members that took all components of issues that have faced our music programs. We had decreased enrollment. At that time, the South Band had 0 participants one year in it because of attrition issues. So we looked at all the things that we had, funding issues with booster groups. So we took as a community, as board members, as administrators, as principals, as community leaders, as students, and we took about 5 months to come up with a study. We presented our results to the Board of Education, and that initiative fueled decisions to really change a lot of sweeping changes in our programs. And we went from 0 to 140 participants at the South Band. We increased improvements in a lot of areas because it was based on data-based. It was supported. It looked at what were systemic problems that we were facing. Well, we have a lot of problems today. And in our programs. In fact, our enrollments are down in 2003, and that was a rough year for us. We still had 26% of high school students participating in music classes, and I bet we barely have 15 to 18% now. We're well below a lot of other districts that are near us. I implore you to maybe consider, I'm going to leave a copy of this with Jennifer Knapp, to maybe look and see if we can take some time and explore some of these issues again. Because, see, the problems may be similar, but I suspect the solutions might be changing now. And so for us to take a look at those things and revisit those and see if we can't increase our enrollments, increase the size of our marching bands, our choirs. You know, we think, well, we have a really, you know, if we just only attend things in our community and see things, we feel good about that because we're proud of our kids. But, you know, when we go over to neighboring districts and say, gee, they have 4 orchestras instead of 2 at one school. In fact, there are many schools that have more students in their instrumental programs than we have in all 3 of our schools combined. I have to say that I want to thank you for your responses to my concerns. Dr. Kellogg and Jennifer Knapp and Scott Reeves and Dr. Nestor Baker responded back to me. I had an opportunity to voice my concerns. My concerns were twofold with the staff today. And Scott and Jennifer were very candid and forthright in discussing that. I've worked with them on many issues. In fact, Jennifer and I were talking about cutting cards to send to people to tell them about a program change that we had just had right after Save the Music and the initiative. But I do have some concerns about the World Middle School Music Program. I shared with them. We didn't get all the answers today. We looked at things like utilization of space, resources, development of the content of the curriculum. And so I got a commitment that they're going to look and find those answers. So I'm going to be kind of a watchdog with them and kind of but I know that based on the institutional experience, we haven't even had a general music class in the district till 2000, since 2011. So we looked at problems with that and kind of addressed those things. Hopefully this will be a good addition, provided that we spend the time planning and developing in that. And last thing, the condition of our secondary music programs. This initiative appears to look at trying to hopefully free up some time for more kids to choose the programs. I think we need to watch that carefully and see if this implementation does improve that access. The only way we're going to get more students in our high school programs is to start with a foundation at the middle school level. And so that's going to take more than just having access in the state. That's going to take commitments from counselors, teachers, program access. And we developed a whole plan in that back in 2003. So if you just even look at some of those, you can see some great ideas that were still pertinent to that. So anyway, that is the end of my comments because I am down to 5 seconds, and I feel like I would encourage you to consider that, and thank you for the time to meet with you today. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Up next is Ron Kenwright.
Ron Kenwright, and thank you for allowing me to speak to you this evening. I have been a teacher for 30 years in Westerville, retired a long time ago, and I started in '67, and I've seen many problems and a lot of problems solved, and I'm very happy with the cooperation we've had. I mainly will just second my thoughts to what Mark and Phil have said. I don't have anything new to add other than I would be a resource person, and I do attend concerts of other school systems, and I'm always impressed with what they're doing with the finances that they have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Peg Duffy.
I don't have an agenda in front of me. I believe the item that I am addressing is 1102. In the last 3 months, I've had numerous conversations with administrators about the misunderstandings that students had this past year with the AP program as a pilot program, and I suggested that when we talk about student fees, we put a reminder in there. Now, we realize that the IB and AP fees are not ones that are determined by our district, but they are in the list of fees that parents and students should expect to be paying. I was kind of disappointed that there isn't kind of any cross-reference there saying, P.S. AP people, look at what's there in your AP course descriptions for when you have to pay these, because if you register late, you have to pay the whole fee, whether you're taking it, and all of that sort of thing. So I think that what is listed in the fee schedule for advanced placement could be improved. Thank you.
Thank you, Peg. Okay. Moving on to financials, 7.1, District Credit Card Spending Rebate Report, and that is Ms. Marshall.
Thank you, President Davidson, members of the board. The update to the district's credit card policy requires that I report to the board annually what we've spent on the district credit card and any rebates that we've received. So fiscal year 2018, we spent a total of $546,213.85. The largest portion of that, a little over $500,000, was our payment to the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. So that is one large payment that we can make. They don't charge us a fee for using the credit card, and we're able to get a rebate back for that. The rest of that was spent on professional development and technology. So for items that they wouldn't take a check, we have to pay with a credit card. The rebate that we received for those dollars that were spent was $6,004.61. The program that we have is a 1.1% rebate on any spend between $1 and $10 million, and we're pretty far away from spending over $10 million. So that is that. Any questions about the credit credit card spending rebate report. We'll do this every year.
And then 7.2, update on state funding for school districts.
Yes. I have a PowerPoint presentation for you tonight. Thank you. So every 2 years, we're looking at state funding for fiscal years 20 and 21. The state does a biennium budget. Hold on, let me turn this on. I'll get it to work eventually. The state budget runs on fiscal years, just like the district's finance is done. So it's July 1 through June 30. It cannot be longer than 2 years. And it is developed as law, so it goes through the House. It'll be assigned a House bill. I think the most current one is House Bill 166 that's been introduced. The current budget proposal is for 20 and 21, so that's the next fiscal year and then the one after that. We're currently in fiscal year 18-19. And it must be adopted prior to the expiration of the previous budget. So for us, that's June 30th, 2019. That's when the current budget passes. Now, it is possible that the legislator could do a temporary budget, which would be for a short period of time, and then come back. They have done that in the past. It's been a while since they've done that. So I'm not really too concerned about that. The state budget process begins with the governor. He works with his department, the state departments, to send budgets around sometime in the fall. He creates a budget to be presented to the legislator, and new governors coming in, that budget is due by March 15th. If they are returning governors, it's due 4 weeks after the General Assembly starts, which is around early February sometime. After that, it'll go to the House. The House actually creates its own substitute version of the budget. And then it'll go to the Senate. The Senate will create its own sort of version of the budget. And then it'll go to a conference committee, which is where the House and the Senate, everybody gets together and tries to hash out the differences. And then finally signed into law by the governor. This is kind of where we're at, in between here and here in this process. The governor did introduce a budget. His proposal for K12, the theme is investing in Ohio's children and families for early childhood and K12 education. It targets an additional $550 million in new revenue over the 2 years period, $250 million for FY20 and $300 million for 21. That's over FY19 levels. It basically freezes funding. The current formula that we have as it stands, no one will receive any more or any less, with the exception of what the key term they're using is wraparound services. And those are to address social and emotional well-being aspects of educating students. And the new formula that he's suggesting for the supplemental wraparound services would be based off the district's percentage of students in households at or below 185% of the federal poverty level.
And these are services that have not been previously budgeted, correct?
There's never really been anything assigned specifically for those services. Right. So we have some categorical funding in the current formula to address various categories such as special ed, gifted, those sorts of things, but nothing really this robust, I guess.
Specifically targeted from the state level.
Now, what I haven't received an answer on for the governor's proposal is whether or not that would be prescriptive funding, and that we would have to report back specifically how that was spent and how that was added. So that's to be determined at this point. All schools would receive a minimum of $25,000 in FY20 and $30,000 in FY21. So every school district would at least receive something. So, and I always like to use Kelly's Island as an example. They have 5 students. They would receive $25,000 in FY20 and $30,000 in FY21. What the governor's budget means for us, it's Student and Wellness and Success worksheet that the Legislative Services Commission, the Legislative Services Commission is the commission that puts together, it kind of runs all the numbers of all the ideas that the legislators have when we go through this process. So they'll put out various simulations throughout the whole process. So on that spreadsheet for us, it would be an additional $1.2 million in FY20 and $1.4 million in FY21. So a total of about $3.8 million in new revenue for us over the 2-year period. And the amounts are based off of the census data. It's the 185% of the poverty level, and enrollment data from current year March that's in here, but it's the census data from 2013 through 2017. So this was ran in the Columbus Dispatch when we went through the latest funding formula when it was introduced new. That was back in the 13-14 school year. So that's the formula that we're on right now, but it's sort of a joke about how complicated the school funding formula is. There's very few people that can actually explain it to you. The one that everyone's talking about, there's been a couple of articles in the newspaper referring to this plan. It's the Fair School Funding Plan. It's been developed by a work group put together by Representatives Robert Cupp and John Patterson. Robert Cupp is a Republican out of Lima, Ohio, and John Patterson is a Democrat out of Jefferson, Ohio. It's a bipartisan effort between these two representatives. And they asked superintendents and treasurers from around the state back in 2017 to get together, because when we were going through the last budget cycle, they said, we don't really have time to address this. We would like to address this. So they put this work group together. It's made up of 9 treasurers, 8 superintendents, and 1 assistant superintendent all across the state of Ohio, and Pete Japitsky from the Ohio School Boards Association helps with the transportation piece too. So these folks got together over the last couple of years. They met monthly. They had several different committee groups within the group that met on the side also. They've done a lot of work on this. Their goal was to develop a comprehensive school funding model that will make sense to taxpayers, be transparent and understandable, and easy to modify to reflect education policy and practices. The total report, they have a whole webpage dedicated to it, lays out several things. It has the base costs that are laid out, but it has several studies for the different categorical components that they would like to see, comprehensive studies that they'd like to see have done over the 4 years that it will be implemented. The implementation is a 4-year process. And it recommends a funded where educated model. So what this means currently, we have students who reside in this district but it might attend a community school or a STEM school, and we receive funding from the state for those students, and it's subject to our state share index. So we receive about 42% of what the pure pupil student funding is for those students. We're a capped district, so we don't actually receive 42%. We only receive about 32%, and we pay out 100% to that community school for that student. So this would eliminate that expense to us as well. So they would fund, their recommendation is to fund the community schools directly for the students that they're educating.
I don't want to beat that too hard, but a student attends an alternative school, and we receive for that student less money than we eventually give to that school for that student. And indeed, we get less because we are a capped district.
Right.
I just thought that would be fun to say again.
Yeah. Well, and I can tell you for the numbers for 2018, we had $6.1 million in community school and STEM school transfers out. And 4 million of that was local funds that were sent to those schools. We only received about 2.1 million of that funding.
Okay. I just think that's important for people to hear. If you follow this closely, you just understand that we've been frustrated with this for a while, seeing money, we would say, used in places that really is supposed to be here. And I won't, again, I'm not going to belabor that point. But it's just important to note that this is a big issue. And for our district and many districts, it equates to millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And so if we're talking about music education, or we're talking about facilities, we're talking about staff, whatever we're talking about, this is a complicated issue, at least it is for me. Maybe you all get it. It's a very complicated issue for my little brain. But my little brain says that these funds are collected to educate our students. And this process is messy and hard, but it's very important.
One of the work groups, when I've gone to these meetings, some of the members have said one of the reasons that they want to see that direct funding happening is because the way it's happening now causes animosity between districts and community schools. Because you do have some community schools that do well for students, and you have some that don't necessarily do so well. So, but there's, I see Nancy's face.
There are some who do well.
There are some that do well, not a lot.
Many who do not.
Yeah, not a lot.
Pay money to
Right.
failure.
Exactly.
And for me, it's pretty darn simple. We are paying money that belongs here in these schools to pay for what our kids need in our school district, was generated by our voters to pay for our kids, and we're sending it to failure more often than not. Whatever else comes out of Patterson, if this happens, this is a huge, huge breakthrough
Yeah.
for public education.
Yeah, it will be a big deal if they can get this through.
And then, when those kids fail, they have to come back, and we remediate them. So it costs us double.
That's true.
Right.
That is very true, Tracy.
So definitely a good thing. This is a little blurry, but this is the work group's recommendation for base costs. I think it's important to note that the current formula has I tend to say it's an arbitrary number when they've calculated base cost. No one really said, well, how much does it cost to educate a child? So this group asked the question. They evaluated data from all the districts around the state, and this is what they came up with for the percentage of amount that needs to be added for base costs. 60% straight to the classroom, another 35% to just supports for the classroom, and then 5% for administration and district accountability. The base cost includes things like safety and security, co-curriculars, the basic social and emotional support, technology, that was a big one, network and activity, connectivity and that sort of thing. That was very important to them because, I think one of the treasurers took to the State House an old record and said, we don't use these anymore, and technology changes, and so the idea is that this can be updated each year and kept current. Things that aren't included in the base cost, and then these are the things that will be additional components that they would like to see some studies done, which is your special education, your gifted, your English learners, transportation, poverty, those sorts of things. So they want to see some studies done throughout the 4-year period for those.
Going to cover that, but if you are, I apologize. But did I understand that one of the other different mechanisms is that currently for those base costs that are not included in the current formula, those are done as add-ons to the base cost for a child. So, right?
Yes.
And in this model, I thought I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they're recommending it goes back to being a multiplier to the base cost. Instead of, for example, instead of you get X amount of dollars more for a kid who has a specific disability on top of the base cost, it's a multiplier to the base cost.
Right, so that it will continue to grow as the base cost
Right.
grows.
I think
Yes.
that's a fundamental difference, too, that's underneath this. That's
Huge.
Thank
The current state share index, which is a very complicated formula that I'm not sure I could explain to you, would be eliminated. There's a new per pupil capacity that's based on 60% property valuation and 40%. There would no longer be an interrelationship between districts. So our current state share index is compared to a statewide amount for valuation and for income. So as the statewide totals change, so does everyone else's state share index. So this would, we would no longer have that interrelationship. It would require the state to fund an additional $170 million over the governor's proposal over the 2-year period. The net result for us would be, according to the Legislative Services Commission, again, they're using a lot of estimates in the numbers that they've calculated, but from that spreadsheet, they have $5.9 million for fiscal year 20 and about $4.5 million for 21. So it's about $15 million over the 2-year period in new revenue.
Does that net result include the dollars that would no longer be required from us to pay to charters?
Yes,
It does, okay,
that's taken that into account.
okay.
Approximately 85% of the districts in the state would be on the formula. And I'm going to share some information with you about the current formula and where that stands now. But all but about 100 districts would be funded as the formula is written. Our current funding model has base cost plus add-on for several categories. And like John was saying, this new model would be a multiplier, so it would change as the base costs change. It would grow with the base costs. The state share index is calculated in relation to statewide values for income and property values. This will eliminate that, so every district would be standalone. 503 school districts are either on the cap or the guarantee on the current funding formula out of 610 districts in the state. That is not a formula. It's definitely not a formula that's working. So I think that the legislator has seen that there is a very serious need for this and that they're willing to address it. It's just how much will they address it? This is a slide from the 5-year forecast presentation that we did back in the fall. We're updating the forecast for the May update. I will present it to the board at the May 6th board meeting. But what we have in the forecast is the current formula and increasing having the cap at 2.5%. It's currently at 3% for fiscal year 19, and it was the same for 18. And we have 2 new budget cycles in the forecast period. So the one that we're talking about is that first yellow circle there for 20 and 21. And then 22 and 23 would be part of this if they continued it, but that would be subject to the next budget bill. But this is a 4-year process. The idea is that we would get about a quarter of what the funding formula calls for, the way they have it spaced out, and then by the end of year 2, we'd be funded about half of what the funding formula calls for, and by end of year 4, it would be a fully functioning formula that would work. Our current funding, we're losing $12 million to the cap for fiscal year 18. We expect to lose another $11.5 million the current year. And this overall, it's about $3 million in new revenue is what we have in the forecast. So for the 2-year period. So the governor's budget is about $3.8 million, and the Patterson formula is about $15 million over the 2-year period. So hoping we fall somewhere between the two. But we'll see how that turns out. Again, state budget process, we're very, very early. That green arrow is about where we're at. The governor has introduced his proposal. He did say when he introduced his budget that he knew that the Cup-Patterson work group was working on a formula and that he wanted to give them the opportunity to go through that. So he kind of left school funding, the formula alone, and then just did the supplemental add-ons for the social and emotional well-being. The House, that work group it's in subcommittees. There's testimony all week this week. If anyone wants to go down to the State House with me and tell people what we think of it, I'd be happy to have you join me. I'll be down there sometime. And the Senate, we've not heard anything from them yet. That will probably be sometime within the next month or so that they'll come up with something. So we're still very early in the process, but I think it's good that people are having the conversation, that they're doing the work. A lot of time and effort, I know, has gone into this from our colleagues around the state, and it's been very thoughtful. The Treasurer Ryan Pendleton from Akron has said the time of us, beating our fists against the table and yelling at the state and asking them to send us more money isn't really working, so they're trying another approach. So we'll see what happens with that. That's all I have. Are there any questions? Any more questions, I should say?
I don't have any questions, but the Cup-Patterson approach addresses a whole lot of concerns, and it would put us on a much more consistent, stable way of looking at the funding we receive from the state. It has been very difficult for the past few decades to properly look at our funding for the district and to provide consistency and stability within this district. And that's the way it is for most districts across the state. When this first came out, it was one of those, hallelujah, this is amazing moments. This is bipartisan, this is sound, this includes educators who know what it takes and who live with these funding decisions every day. And, at this point, as Nicole was saying, it's very early in the process. There's this really, really old saying, you might have seen it in literature, you might have seen it in some historical documents, it said there's many a slip twixt cup and lip. In other words, from the time you get it till the time you swallow it, things can really spill. So we are in that process right now. So we're in a time period where there could be many slips between cup and lip. So what I would hope that we would do, and Nicole, you're going down, and you're going to stay on top of this, and I know you will, I want us to all stay on top of it as well. This matters. This is something that we could really get behind and really support. And as your Akron colleague said, it would stop the pounding and the anguish that we feel over what has happened in the past with school funding. So I hope that we can get behind this and do whatever we can to say what's right for Westerville City Schools in a way that will provide us with some consistency and some stability.
No, I raised enough fuss before. I got Nancy riled up. That was my goal.
That's right. Charter schools.
Okay, thank you so much, Nicole. That was great.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to personnel consent agenda, 8.1 through 8.9. May I have a motion?
So moved.
And Mark's going to join us.
Good evening, President Davidson, members of the board, Dr. Kellogg, Ms. Marshall. I'd like to present for your consideration the personnel consent agenda. Some of the highlights tonight include the following. We have 2 retirements, both of which will be effective August 1, 2019, and we'll certainly celebrate them at our end of the year retirement ceremony. But I'd like to mention we have Mr. Michael Brown, who has submitted his resignation. He is our head custodian at Hawthorne Elementary, and he's retiring after 24 years of service. We also have Ms. Joan Klemick. She serves our English language learners at McVeigh Elementary School, and she has devoted 12 years of service here in Westerville City Schools. In addition, we have a total of 13 resignations from various classified substitute, administration, teacher, and classified pupil activity positions. There are 2 one-time payments. These are for staff who have supported our district as both an orientation mentor and for testing services for our gifted education. There's also the employment of 11 individuals in various classified sub, and classified supplemental help positions. We have the employment of a special education coordinator and a number of individuals in a number of supplemental contract and classified pupil activity programs. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Ms. Marshall?
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. Okay, 9.1, final reading of new middle school courses of study. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments here?
I do have a couple questions,
Okay.
if it's not too late.
Okay.
Couple questions.
Do you think you could answer a couple questions for us? Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, hi. Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry, I have a cold, I'm sorry. Thank you. I don't know if this was covered last time or not, but I just can't remember. So I'm wondering, was there a change in the bell schedule with the redesign? There is a proposed change to the bell schedule to move from a 7-period day to an 8-period day. That still includes lunch as one of those periods. One of the things, as we had heard from teachers, is more access to coursework, especially in 8th grade. A lot of our students were having to make some difficult decisions, so that 8-period day would allow students to have access to more courses.
Okay, and then the other question I had is with the, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, it doesn't change the beginning or the end of the day. I just don't want someone to watch this and have that confusion, so the start and end times are the same. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. That's important information for parents especially. And then with the new courses that we're looking at offering, which, if any of those, are required courses?
So what we have done is we have asked, okay, let me back up. So in grade 6, what we are asking to add is the World Cultures and Music course, which is a required quarter course. In grade 7, it's medical detectives and health, both of which are also required. The engineering extreme at grade 8 is an optional course, but we do have a required course of engineering in grade 7. Where we really are at the beginning of this process is we want students to have exposure to all courses as we start to add. So perhaps down the road, in other districts they have a wealth of opportunities and students choose to take 3 of 6. Because we're in stage 1, phase 1, or the initial phase, we're still kind of articulating that. We do ask that all students take these courses. So there might be some extenuating circumstances, but that has been our recommendation.
And I know we've heard a little bit about music today. Do you think that it is going to impact music participation?
I think that it will allow an opportunity for more students to take courses, particularly in 7th and 8th grade. Overwhelmingly, when I met with music teachers, is they said access. There's not enough time in the day, and students, as I mentioned before, are having to choose, let's say, between Spanish and wanting to take, band or choir or orchestra. Wanting that high school credit option, and really with a 7-period day, one of which was lunch, that limited them. Also, as we had some Tier 2 intervention courses, students had to make some difficult choices between, how much they would be able to access those and other elective options. So we do feel that making it the 8-period day will allow that flexibility in the student schedule, especially in grades 7 and 8.
So, but what about grade 6? I mean, if we're adding required courses, I know we're adding 1 period to the day, but we're adding required courses in each grade level?
Not in grade 8, but in grade 6 and 7, and we have had a lot of conversations as we work toward teaming, because one of those periods will be, we've called it flex or we've called it E&I, so that does only allow for 2 kind of periods of non-core periods, if you will. And currently we have scheduled lit skills, which really gets students started with understanding Google Suites and understanding kind of how to navigate middle school. and some career exploration, as well as PE 6. And then we added the World Cultures and Music course as well. We do feel that, students will have some flexibility during the day, but that has been our recommendation. So 6th grade is the, I don't want to say most restrictive, that's not the right phrase, but most required. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Dr. Kellogg.
There's also difference in the lengths of the courses. So sometimes we hear 8 periods and we see a course and we go, oh, okay, so that takes a whole period. But if that course is a semester-long course, then there's really room for 2 electives in that child's schedule. So the length of these courses also provides more access to more of the coursework for students, so they're not limited in what they can take.
Yes, I understand that, but I do think the music courses are year-long courses.
All of our music, the World Cultures is a quarter course, so the thought is that it would be every other day for a semester, but choir, band, and orchestra are every other day all year long.
Is it every other day in each middle school? Because I thought there might be one middle school where it was every day.
There is one middle school to kind of through some scheduling things that they offer band 8 every day, and we're exploring the possibility of that opportunity for our kids, but we're not quite there yet. But they have done that kind of, it was sort of a discovery, because, and what we're trying to also balance is the amount of students in study hall, because we have gone through, as Phil stated earlier, with our cuts in 2011-12, we had a lot of students sitting in 2 study halls every day, which is definitely something that we don't want. And we have made changes since then, and that's currently not the case now, but we're looking to make sure that doesn't happen going back to an 8-period day. So it's quite a balance.
So correct me if I'm wrong, at that school, that instructor chose to allow students who had a study hall at the time of band to come to the band room rather than be in study hall, which is not a model we can't support. It becomes a model of that individual taking on additional students into their regular schedule. So it wasn't that, there's no special design or additional FTE to make that happen. It's just the way they did that. And that, as Jen said, that's something we've looked at because we've heard that one and wanted to see what we can do. But if that's the case, back to that, if that band is now meeting every day in my schedule, I, as a student, has then limited my opportunity to take another elective next to band, choir, orchestra. So trade-off.
Sure.
It's something we can
But
continue
it
to
is
explore.
only available at one middle school.
It's available at one middle school by that middle school's choice with the resources they have, not by special circumstances.
And so was there any discussion about how the required courses, the addition of the required courses might impact music enrollment?
We had conversations on, and a lot of times, as you ask teachers, every teacher wants their course required. So we try to strike that balance and keep things more consistent as they have in the past. We did feel that adding a required music course, that's also something that the music teachers had said, if every student has the opportunity to take a music course in grade 6, that will help further our enrollment down the line. As we heard from students from superintendent's advisory, and we loved, they wanted more opportunities around culture, we tried to marry as many ideas, or marry those 2 ideas, I should say, together for this opportunity in the grade 6 course specifically. And Frank, as you look at 7 and 8, there's a lot of opportunity for students, and one of the big things overwhelmingly our parents and staff members said, oh, our kids need health, like that needs to be a required course. Right now it's an elective. It's a wellness course. It's a little mix, but
Sure, but there is required health in high school too.
correct, yes.
So was there any discussion about having them pick a music course? So band, orchestra, choir, or the new music class? Like you choose between the 3?
We did, frankly, we did not have a lot of discussion on that because one is a semester course and one would be a
Right.
quarter course.
But the kids aren't being, in other words, bringing on the World Cultures course doesn't mean that kids can't take band and choir.
Right.
And I think that's really important that people understand that. This does not remove that from kids at all.
Exactly.
But it does add another requirement, making it one more thing that they have to do, where they might have to make that difficult decision between taking band or not taking band.
So
You're going to
it-
have less openings in your schedule because you have an additional requirement.
you would have less study hall. You would have less study halls.
We're
If a
adding an
student does-
additional
right,
period.
yes.
And so basically the decision, okay, so there'd be an additional period, and then there are also the opportunities currently for study hall, so they would have to decide if they wanted one less study hall or not. So the shift in the bell schedule is extraordinarily important as we consider these courses. So when we look at the increase in requirements, that only works functionally if we increase the number of periods in the day. Because otherwise, then we do end up bringing on new courses and keeping kids out of others.
Okay, but you're adding one additional period. You're also adding an additional requirement, right? So, I mean, it's not as if there's going to be, you're not really having the same net gain. See what I'm saying? In flexibility in someone's schedule.
The requirement in grade 6 would meet, and this was purposeful, to meet every other day, because we wanted students to have an opportunity to still take band and choir, or orchestra. So if you, as a 6th grader, if I choose to not take band, choir, or orchestra, it would be, I would take a study hall instead. So there's not a.
But you couldn't have a study hall and take it, band, choir, orchestra
In
then?
grade 6, you would have it every other day for a semester, because it would be off of the World Cultures and Music course. So you would still have that.
Still have what? I'm sorry, you're not
You would still
specifying.
have a semester of study hall, every other day for a semester. So as a 6th grader, I take the 4 core, we have the I&E period, I have lunch. It's not necessarily in this order, by the way. Everyone's will be a little different. And then lit skills and PE. Sometimes those are both semester courses, so that's a full period. And then there's one last period, or the final period is, it's going to be that World Cultures course that meets every other day for a semester, and then band, choir, or orchestra. So I would go, and I'm not saying that those would necessarily be the same period. Work through me out, that's up to building discretion. So if I don't take band, choir, or orchestra, I have a semester of study hall every other day.
Okay, so what I said was accurate then. If you're taking band, choir, orchestra, in addition to the required courses, you cannot have a study hall.
You would not have a study hall for the beginning of the semester every other day, or the second semester, just whichever.
If you'd like, Ms. Carter, we can sit down and take a look at the,
For one semester, you wouldn't be able to have a study hall, is that what you're saying?
correct.
Every other day.
Every other day, yes.
So it's easier to see on a matrix. Might be better to sit down with you and walk you through what it looks like on
And
that.
Mr. Reeves and I weren't able to connect, so that's why I'm having some questions, so.
For me, it's hard to visualize. That's why I just pulled up, because to me, it's hard to visualize unless I'm looking
But
at
still, you wouldn't be able to have a study hall all year if you were going to take the required courses in band, orchestra, or choir.
Correct. This is no different than our high school students who opt to fill up their schedule and not have a study hall. So the thirst for how much I'm going to take and how much time I need at school for study hall is a great dining room conversation. I had it as a parent. I'm sure we all have. We have some students who have an appetite for filling up their schedule. They AP the world, they IB the world, they take 2 music courses, and there's not a study hall in their schedule. And that's that balance piece about knowing your child and what you think they can absorb.
No, I get that. I mean, I certainly have those conversations at home with 2 high schoolers. But I do think we've been having a decline in enrollment in the music program, so that's why I'm concerned about it.
Well, this isn't intended to have that effect. We can certainly look at that as we go along, but that's not the intent, is to steal students out of band, orchestra, choir in order to put them in required courses. I think it's
So
about trying to provide
If it's
more
making it
options for
harder for
students.
6th graders to take those courses, that's when they start taking them. So, you know, if there's openings in 7th and 8th grade where they could have maybe a study hall in addition, but then they miss 6th grade. So now they're a year behind, and they're unlikely to really start 7th and 8th grade, so.
The other sixth grade available time is the I&E period, which is that additional time period which provides them, depending on how that is used within the school and by those teachers, for additional time for support from teachers as they need it. So there's that additional period in there that's undefined in terms of a course, where extension activities to the classroom or interventions for students. So if I'm struggling in math and I don't have a study hall, there's time built into the 7th grade schedule every day where I can go work with my math teacher or my English teacher, my core content classes. And I can envision also where teachers say, you know, this is going to be, if you're a student without a study hall and you have this full schedule, that might be time you use for your study hall time too. So there's lots of flexibility.
But you said that's 7th grade, right?
No, that's sixth grade.
Oh, I thought you
Yeah,
just said.
it's in 7th and 8th grade as well. In 6th grade, it's specifically designed as I&E, intervention and extension, with the idea being that,
So that's an additional reserve period?
yes,
6th graders?
yes.
And it's part of the teaming model, and I do feel like with, you know, that proposal that the students would get that additional support, as Dr. Kellogg said, within that I&E time, as to where now we don't have that model in place, and so it would, it's more difficult, I think, for students to navigate middle school a little bit.
It is hard to visualize it. And it would probably be very helpful if everybody saw a matrix of what we're looking at as regards to the, you know, the schedule for the day. Because it does, adding that additional period opens up a lot of flexibility that if we didn't have it, all of the worries that we have about band and choir and orchestra would come to fruition. But because we are adding that additional period and we have that flex period, which isn't fully defined, not fully defined now and shouldn't be at this point in time, that provides the intervention and provides help for students and time for students, we actually do, I think, gain more capacity to help kids take band, choir, and orchestra than we have now, definitely. And I am hopeful that we will see a significant uptick over the next few years in the kids that are able to do that. I think that what Mark Stevens was saying about the importance of working with everybody involved, counselors and teachers and families, and working with the elementaries and working with the middle schools, and being very, very deliberate about the kind of communications we put out about this will help people understand. Because right now, we're all familiar with the current model, and it's not going to be that. So it's difficult because we don't have, you know, here's the bell schedule, here's everything laid out in front of us, and, you know, you might be saying, well, then why are we doing this now? Because we know that we're going to make those shifts. You know, that's an administrative piece that can happen in order to move forward as regards resources, as regards assignments, as regards all the pieces that have to come into play. We need to move on curricular approval so that we can begin the necessary logistic and structural pieces that go with an approved curriculum. So that's why it might feel out of sync to you.
With this flexible period that you're talking about, I mean, is this a full-length period?
It's scheduled that way, but really it will be up to the team on how they choose, you know, to use that on a regular basis. It will really be team dependent. You know, some days they might block their day, and that has less of an opportunity because they're doing that tier 2 intervention, whether that be extension or enrichment within that. But it is currently scheduled, if you would look at it as a 8-period day, that it is a full period, yes.
Did I hear you
Is this
say?
the extra, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, so is this the extra period you're adding then, this flexible period, or?
Or grade, this is applicable just to grade 6 as we introduce teaming in grade 6. It's that team.
There's an additional 8th period across the schedule. In 6th grade, it has a specific designation as I&E. In 7th grade, it has a specific designation now as study hall. So all of the grade levels have an additional 8th period. All of the periods are the same length. As Jen was referring to in the teaming model with core classes, if they want to flex the schedule, they can. So yes, it's the same length, 8 periods, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
And so they're currently 7 periods.
Correct.
So the period you're adding is this flexible period.
Correct,
So it's not necessarily just an open period to schedule how you want then?
correct. It's a period that's actually allocated to the teacher teams to decide how they want
Which
to
could
use.
impact the ability to enroll in band, orchestra, or choir then, if it's not a completely open period.
It's not a period for students to schedule a class, no. We were charged with add electives to middle school, more
Electives is
opportunities.
great.
Right.
If we want to add these electives, I have no problem. But I'm only concerned about adding more requirements and making it harder for people to choose the subjects they want to take. That's my overall concern.
I totally understand that concern. I think that adding the extra period, even though the flex period in 6th grade is not something that a kid can then schedule, that flex period in 6th grade relieves some of the concerns that Mark was bringing up and that you have raised as well around students' need for additional help during the day. And whether that is a study time or intervention or enrichment, that's when that happens. So it's not allowed to be scheduled for other stuff so that we maintain that. If we didn't have that extra period added to the day, we couldn't do that, and then we would, in my mind, see potential reductions in numbers of students taking band, choir, and orchestra. I think that what the committee that's been working on the structure and the committee that's been working on curriculum, as they have looked at this, the intention was very much to try to provide additional access to kids, not close access down. And the new flex period at 6th grade, the additional period at 7th and 8th grade is designed to help let that happen.
So my concern is that with the additional requirements at 6th grade and not being able to schedule during that added period, we really could impact students' abilities to start those music classes, whether it's choir, orchestra, or band, and that it could have a unintended consequence, shall we say, of increased declines in enrollment in our music program.
So I'd make the final recommendation. I'd recommend that you move forward in acting on the curriculum tonight. Let us go through the enrollment process and have those conversations that were suggested tonight about what does this mean in terms of your scheduling, particularly at 6th grade, because we can always make adjustments as we see numbers come in. If we're seeing a fall off in enrollment in band, orchestra, and choir based on this conflict, those adjustments can be made before we get into next school year.
I understand what you're saying, but what I'm trying to say is there's already been a decline. So I'm afraid that we're going to end up exacerbating a problem that we already have, so. Rather than improving enrollment, which I would have hoped that would have been part of the goal.
It is.
It is, and again, some things, as Dr. Nestor Baker alluded to, so we have, some Tier 2 courses, our reading lab and math lab specifically, that would be embedded within that I&E time, so that does offer some more flexibility that students didn't have previously. And again, as Dr. Kellogg mentioned, having that additional period in grades 7 and 8, I hate to keep going back to our high school courses, but that was overwhelmingly, and I think they're great and they need to stay in 8th grade. But, students were, taking their 4 core, they were having lunch, and they wanted Spanish, and they wanted art foundations, and they're done with their day. Now they have another period where they could return, and that's, the feedback from our music teachers is they run out of time in the day. So moving to an 8-period day gives our students more time, particularly in 7th and 8th grade. So
I think the 7th and 8th grade part is great, but if they're going to get behind in taking one of the other music courses because they're not starting in 6th grade, that's going to impact them throughout their career, especially if they're interested in music. So,
And
6th grade's already kind of late to start with an instrument, so, or even any other kind of musical, like even choir and stuff, so.
And one of the reasons why the World Cultures and Music course was recommended to be required is that so every student had an opportunity to take a music course. They felt that if students have access to music, they're more likely to continue it in the future. So,
And that's what I was jumping in before to say. I mean, it's a very interesting discussion to me, and those of you who know me, you know, the whole music thing and he's going to say it again, the foreign language piece is a big deal to him. How to say this? You indicated that the discussion in the departments, the staff, that indicated that they are saying this world cultures in music could be, my word, could be an on-ramp to music for students to whet their appetite. I don't know how to say this other than to say this, but some of us have means to introduce our children to music at a younger age and can put them in instruments and provide them with lessons and et cetera. When a large portion of our district might not have that opportunity. And a world cultures music immersion might help a light bulb to go off in their head that I didn't know music was a thing I could do. So however we bang this out graphic-wise, I think we need to keep in mind that it may be late 6th grade, but for a lot of our students, it is not going to happen unless we encourage the family dynamic of music is a world language, and we are trying to introduce them to it so that they can see, I can pursue this. Now, how it gets fleshed out in all of the mechanics of the class schedule and 7 and 8 periods and all of that. But I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that a lot of our district will not have these opportunities unless we provide some kind of on-ramp to understanding the power and the purpose of music. And this kind of class, lovingly required, may be the thing that opens them up to band, choir, orchestra. I don't want us to lose sight of the opportunity we're trying to provide to a large majority of our students that do not have what I was able to provide to mine.
So I'm going to dovetail off that because I hear what you're saying. And as a parent, it wasn't a choice for my kids. They had to choose something. So I'm just asking you to think about it, maybe talk to your colleagues. What if it was a music choice? So meaning band, orchestra, choir, or this new music component. I don't know if that works with FTE, but I love the idea of everyone trying something. I'm not sure we should make them pick that thing. I get what the reason behind it was, and I really like it. I think music is really important for that other side of the brain. But I not require any music. No, I'm saying pick one music component.
Require them to choose?
Right, for them to choose. I'm saying we don't choose it for them, they choose. As they go in as a 6th grader, you choose band, orchestra, choir, or this new music program.
So to keep the ball rolling on the middle school piece.
Yep, we do.
We can certainly go back to the table and consider whether or not modifications to what's required and not required can be made, and what does that mean? Because I'm looking at it, and I don't know if it's completely simple. And then bring that back from what does it look like in the master schedule and the FTE piece? But I would recommend moving forward on approving the curriculum with the caveat that we will look at see if there's a way to reduce, because what I hear, if I have it right, Ms. Cotter, what your concern is if, in the way the sixth grade schedule plays out now, if I take band, orchestra, choir, and all the other required courses, what I lack is enough time for study hall.
Yes. Or picking something else even. I mean,
Well, there's 4 required and then
are those
band,
the only
orchestra,
electives?
choir.
Okay, I didn't know what
Yeah.
all the electives
So-
were for sixth grade.
So you're asking if we could consider revising this so that if my child is taking the required courses and band, orchestra, and choir, I can have more study hall than is in the current plan. What's in the current plan is study hall, those students who took all the required and opted to band, orchestra, or choir would have a period of study hall every other day for 1 semester. Would a model in which a student who chose those had study hall every other day all year be satisfactory?
I think
Or do
that's-
you want to study hall every day?
I think that that's reasonable every other day all year, but I like the idea of choosing one of the 3, the world cultures, or actually 4, choir, orchestra, and band. I think that's a great
If that,
option.
we'll look at that and see if that fits. I can't off the top of my head, but I just want to make sure what it is you're looking for us to do. And I want to be careful there because this comes from recommendations from a whole host of individuals who have been involved in this from a teacher perspective about what they think needs to happen to middle school. And now we're making modifications, considering potential modifications at the board level. I think part of that conversation probably needs to go back to see what that committee looks like. So what I'm asking for, so we can get things moving forward, is the curriculum's in front of you. We can take a look at this other piece now and know the parameters and see what we could solve and have some conversation about that.
And if you could check also, particularly with the music staff, I think that would be helpful.
Music staff have been involved.
Yes, we've had at least three meetings with them over the course of the past, since probably mid-November, and lots of emails.
And Jed, we really appreciate your work on this, and we know we keep coming back with thoughts, questions, and we just want to get it right, so.
I completely agree.
So thank you.
Yeah, I do too, and I appreciate your flexibility. Thank you.
Well, I will go along with this. I want to get this approved. We need to have it approved so we can move ahead. But I do want to say that I have significant reservations about kind of at the end of the game, I don't want to call it a game, but at the end of the whole process that has been going on for months and months with the development of what the middle school should look like in 6th grade and 7th and 8th grade, that we turn on its head all that the teachers have brought to us. I'm totally understanding where you're coming from and what the desire is, and I understand the need to go along with that, but it is with reservation based on the amount of work and the amount of time and the amount of meetings and the numbers of people and all of the discussion and all of that that has come to this point in time. If we need to do something different, we will do something different, but I do want to log that I am deeply reserved about it.
Anybody else?
Okay. Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Velarde?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. Okay, 9.2, final reading of the 2020-2021 academic calendar. Any questions or concerns here? I'm sorry, may I have a motion?
Second.
Greg's in the back, any questions?
Mr. Velarde?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. And then 10.1 is our first reading for middle school advanced courses of study. Welcome.
Good evening, President Davidson, members of the board, Superintendent Kellogg, and Treasurer Marshall. Thank you for the opportunity to present the first reading of the advanced courses of study. Westerville City Schools currently offers advanced coursework for core subject areas in grades 6, 7, and 8. Specifically, 6th grade has math, English, language arts, science, and social studies, and 7th and 8th grade have advanced versions of math that are kind of a little different than the courses of study that we're talking about now. So we have 6th grade courses of study across all of the core subjects, and 7th and 8th grade courses of study across English, language arts, science, and social studies. So these courses follow the same state standards for their subject area and grade level as their on-level counterparts, but the content is delivered through methods that provide a more challenging learning environment, and it's typically through faster pace, increased depth in the content. The advanced courses, though, have historically used the same naming convention on the student schedules as grade level courses. So due to the difference in the learning environments, and also in the effort to increase transparency for our families, we are recommending that the advanced courses be renamed to more clearly differentiate between grade level and advanced coursework.
So this is a collaborative effort, so we felt like we would collaboratively present. Teachers of these courses have met over the past year to more fully articulate the differences between the grade level and advanced courses, which are reflected in the courses of study that you see. The actual content standards have not changed. Rather, there are some changes in instructional strategies and resources that we access through the College of William and Mary's site. Again, it was a collaborative effort, so it was curriculum specialists, teachers, and the gifted department. The development of these courses and their descriptions, again, will help students and families understand the differences with what these courses are and the expectations of them, and they will be listed as such on the student schedule. Help with transparency. So we will open it up to questions.
So there's no added fiscal impact?
I did not hear you. I'm sorry.
So there's no extra cost for this?
Oh, correct.
Right.
Yes. We do we did some professional development, and we will continue to do so. But that's just part of what we have planned, so nothing additional.
Thank you so much. Okay, 11.1 is a resolution to approve additional time for half-day kindergarten for the 2018-19 school year, and Mr. Vibrance is going to talk to us. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
President Davidson, make sure this is on. Vice President Velardo, Marshall. Before you for approval is a resolution that makes a slight adjustment to this year's academic calendar for our half-day kindergarten students. This was kind of an unusual year when it comes to weather. We've lucked out the past several years. But this year we had several calamity days that we had to call, and as a result of that, our kindergarten students, half-day kindergarten students, would not meet the minimum hours required for a full school year. So we looked for a way to make lemonade out of lemons and came up with a solution that did not require us to actually extend the school year, but rather found a way to make up the time within the current number of days that students are attending. So even though we could use blizzard bags, which we did, we fell short, and so beginning April 1st, simply by adding 5 minutes onto the morning half-day kindergarten and 5 minutes onto the afternoon half-day kindergarten, we were able to make up the time and have a little bit of extra time in case we had another calamity day. And in addition to that, at the end of the school year, we are going to use a day where half-day kindergarten students will attend for a full day, which will give them an idea of what they can expect transitioning into next year as first graders and being at school for a full day schedule. One little anomaly to that is Hawthorne Elementary School. They actually have to attend 2 full days because they had some additional calamity time due to a power outage. And so they're going to have 2 days where what it's like to be a first grader. This all went into effect on April 1st, and we were talking earlier. So far, so good. Proverbial no news is good news, and things seem to be going along pretty well with this plan.
I'm going to be voting against this because I think it's cruel and unusual punishment that you're inflicting on these kindergartners. Just want you to know that.
Anybody else?
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. Okay. All right, 11.2, 2019-2020 student fee schedule. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And Dr. Knapp is back.
Third time's a charm, right? Okay. I should have, I'm getting some steps in. Good evening again. Over the course of the past several years, so I came in February, I believe, the February 25th meeting to first discuss this. And the recommendation was to postpone it. I'm not using the right word, President Davidson. Postpone it or take a pause, or in February, we chose to pause and not vote on this. I was trying to get the right word. I forget. Table it. Thank you. Table the discussion and bring it back and work with Treasurer Marshall. And so we have worked over the past several years diligently to reduce course fees. And as you look at this draft, given your input, all high school course fees have been removed, which does include, we offer art foundations at the middle school, so that has been removed as well because that's a high school course. The high school general fee has increased from $20 to $30 to help support the use of consumable materials and resources. So this does have a fiscal impact. At the high school, it is approximately $90,000 a year, and at the middle school, it is just, it's about 12.5, did I say million? I said $90,000, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
90,000, I'm sorry, and it's about $12,500 at the middle school. So that would be the fiscal impact on a yearly basis. And we're working to have that within the curriculum and instruction budget. So there would not be an overall increase in the 5-year forecast. And Treasurer Marshall, if you have anything, do you have any other comments to that, or am I?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any questions or comments?
One thought to Ms. Duffy's comments about the AP schedule. What I think I heard was you suggesting that deadline dates for AP and IB testing be included in the school fees. Was that kind of what I heard you saying, Peg?
There, or a cross-reference, see whatever registration, but just something that's a reminder to them.
I like that idea. Is that okay if we make a difference to?
And if I may, there are changes in the AP when you pay for the test. That's what she was referring to with the AP pilot. And so we have not changed our process. It is the process from the College Board of asking parents to pay earlier, or to commit, I should say, to taking the exam earlier. And that was new for us this year because we were chosen to be a pilot district, and everyone will have this requirement moving forward. So that was just so everyone was clear on what she was referencing. That is the change. It's what the College Board has required, not something that we have done.
I am extraordinarily pleased that we have reached this. How many years has it been that I have been hoping we would get to this point? I'm delighted that we are here. And having said that, I'm going to ask that we not lose sight of the extensive costs of the AP tests and the IB tests. So going forward, as we look at how we may address that, That's another issue of access in my mind, and another barrier for a number of students as regards whether they participate in AP and IB. But this is a huge step forward. It's really important for our families. It opens up a lot of doors for young people who might not have taken certain courses because of the amount of cost that was involved. So I'm delighted we have reached this point.
I just thought of it, so point of clarification, just so people understand, we're eliminating the fees to the families. We are not eliminating those resources to the classrooms.
Correct.
Right? So
That's a good point of
I don't want anybody sitting there
clarification.
thinking, well, now I'm not going to have the teaching resources I'm supposed to have. That is going to become a general fund through curriculum department that will make sure it continues to happen, so our teachers have the resources they need for those classrooms and the consumables they need.
Good point.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. 11.3, general service contract between Licking County Educational Service Center and Westerville City Boards of Education for 2019-2020 school year. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Barbara Wallace is here to talk to us about this.
President Davidson, Dr. Kellogg, members of the board. I'm here before you to explain a request from the Licking County Educational Service Center. We have, for the past several years, purchased seats in the Phoenix program run through the Licking County ESC. The program specializes in services for students with mental health and behavior concerns. We typically purchase 2 seats from them. The Licking County Educational Service requires that our board pass a resolution to approve the contract for the upcoming 1920 school year. They're doing this because there is an increase in cost. Currently, a seat costs $26,000 for a student, or you are charged a day rate of $175. Beginning next year, the cost will be $38,900 per seat, or $225 per day. The services program provides is very beneficial to our students. The cost increase still makes this program a good and reasonable option. I recommend that you approve the resolution for the upcoming year. Questions?
That's a big jump.
It is, but it's still below a lot of the competitive programs that are like this. Their program was extremely reasonable for us
And effective?
and effective.
And how many seats do we normally purchase? And that's the proposal here, right?
Yes.
Any other questions? Great, thank you. Ms. Marshall?
Ms. Cotter?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. 11.4, resolution to approve the 2018 through 2019 list of parent-teacher organizations, parent-teacher association, and booster groups to be formally recognized by this Board of Education for purposes of liability insurance for the district's benefit. And may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And Ms. Marshall, you want to talk to us about this?
President Davidson, members of the board, this is a resolution that will formally recognize our parent-teacher organizations, including booster groups, that are authorized and somewhat supervised by the building principals for various functions that they would do on school grounds or in the school's name. Our general liability insurance policy allows for them to be covered under that policy, so as long as we have a mechanism in place to authorize them and supervise them. So this allows us to do that. I've had some questions earlier in the year about what that process is like. It wasn't very clear, so my goal here is to kind of clear that up. There is a list of groups on here. There's a lot of groups in this district. It's a great thing to see so many parent organizations supporting our school system. I may have missed someone, so if I have to come back and do an addendum, that may happen sometime in the future. But Mr. Reeves helped put this list together We got with the principals. We think we have everyone covered on here. This does not include any clubs or any of those organizations. This is just PTAs, PTOs, PTSAs, and booster organizations.
I hope this is an appropriate time to say this. I think we all we love what these groups provide to the district, and we're probably all, I think I'm on half a dozen of them. They just are so valuable to the district, and we're very grateful for what they do.
So would parent council be under this too, or everyone's under parent council's umbrella, and so that's how it?
Yeah, so I didn't think of parent council. I see Liz out there in the audience. I didn't think of parent council as a PTA so much. I guess you are, so we probably need to add parent council to this resolution.
So I'd like to
I knew
offer
I'd
an
missed
amendment
someone.
then.
Sorry.
Yeah. I'll offer an amendment to add parent council to the list.
Second that motion. Is there anyone else anybody can think, are we missing anyone else that y'all thought of, maybe?
Does anyone see anyone else that I missed?
The
for this
Italian American
process?
Club. Sorry.
You can always come back again.
You did add parent council? Oh, it is on there. Never mind.
It is?
Oh, you just did it right now, okay. I
Oh,
was like,
thank you.
okay.
Well, we haven't approved it yet.
Okay,
We
let's
need to
vote
vote on
on
the amendment.
The amendment.
first, please.
Okay. Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
I'm abstaining only because I'm on a booster board.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. And now can we vote on the resolution?
Mr. Velardo?
Should I abstain if I'm on one?
Are you an officer?
An officer for the board.
Yes. I'm voting yes. I'm not an officer.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Abstain again.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. Okay. 11.5, resolution to approve boiler replacements at Robert Frost Elementary School. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Darn.
Good evening, President Davidson, Vice President Velardo, members of the board, Dr. Kellogg, Ms. Marshall. Before you is a resolution to approve an HVAC improvement project for Robert Frost Elementary School. This project is part of our fiscal year 20 capital improvements plan that is scheduled for the summer and is in addition to the previously approved scope of work from our last meeting. This scope of work includes the replacement of 2 boilers as recommended by our in-house maintenance department that shall be funded as part of the summer's capital improvement program. Although they have received some component changes over the years, these 2 boilers are original to the building at 45 years old. In comparison, the boilers at Mark Twain, its sister building, were replaced many, many years ago. Bids were solicited in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code on March 18th. We received 4 bids, ranging from $169,222 to $285,000. And they were publicly read on April 2nd. The lowest bid was submitted by the C.D. Whitfield Company in the amount of $169,222. This is well under the engineer's estimate. We performed a post-bid interview with the Whitfield Company on April 2nd, and as a result of their responses, we have deemed them to be a responsible bidder. Thus, it is being recommended that the board accept C.D. Whitfield's bid as presented.
Any questions or comments? Okay, Ms. Marshall?
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. 12.1, we do not have any public comments, so that takes us to board comments. And who would like to go first? Any comments?
Just briefly, Phil Loudon and Ron Kenwright's comments, I think are worth returning to. Phil brought that big yellow book with him, and I'll tell you the truth, I had not remembered that particular piece of work, and I apologize for that, because it was really, really good work that was done in 2003, and a number of the issues, as Mr. Loudon intimated in his comments, they're fairly timeless, and we do see them again. So I no longer have my copy of that book. I was on the board when we did that, but I no longer have that copy. I want us to take a look at the book and see if there are sections of it that would be good for everyone on the board to read, to see what some of those resolutions were, because it was a time when we were actively seeking to identify clear pathways to expand participation in our music programs. That's still an issue, obviously. That, I think, is important. I also think it's really important to draw attention to the fact that both Phil and Ron, who are remarkable educators, Ron was my choir teacher, they're remarkable educators. They are still deeply involved in music and music education in this area, and even more broadly than that. They both offered to be resources to us as we look at what we do with music, and that includes both participation, communication, all aspects that we might be able to draw upon the massive amount of knowledge that those two gentlemen hold and are willing to share with us and use to make our programs ever better. So I'd like to ask that we keep them both top of mind as we move forward.
I just think that's a great suggestion, and I'm glad to hear that you were involved in that effort, too.
Oh, yes, I was deeply involved in that.
I'd be interested to see what some of their suggestions were at the time. I'm sure you're right. Many of them would apply today, so I appreciate your flexibility, too, on the particular issue with music for the 6th grade. Thanks.
A personal note, if I may. I'd like to say happy 30th anniversary to my wife. She's not here. I'm just waving. I'm just. Well, she's at a meeting tonight, so I'm with you, and she's at a meeting. And 30 years ago today, it's our anniversary. And the other personal note, if I may, this would be very meaningful. She went to the University of Virginia. Some of you will understand why I'm making that reference. So it will be a happy household tonight. If you help me. Did you say no?
I said you hope.
I hope, okay. So happy anniversary to my bride of 30 years. And way to go, state reflection winners. We are very proud of those students, really.
Okay, the board will meet for a work session next Monday night, April 15th, at 6 p.m. in the board training room at the Early Learning Center, and also a regular session on Monday, April 22nd at 6 p.m. also. In addition to that, the board will hold a special meeting on Monday, April 29th, 2019 at Westerville North High School to recognize our GEM winners, great educator mentors. So we hope you can join us. And with that, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. We're adjourned.
58.